Hello, welcome back to Laying It Out. I'm Chelsea Pockets, and there's not a Scotti Dempsey in sight. She is moving again for like the 7th time this summer. But what is that in the distance? Is that the Michael Ball? Multi-world reporter, D3 enthusiast, North Carolina ultimate dude. I planned for that. I wanted to annoy you some more.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That nickname definitely has never gotten old.
So Scotti and I do it all the fucking time.
Oh, man.
Listeners,
hi, Pockets. How are you? It is nice to join your podcast and be ridiculed from the very beginning.
Wait, just 1 second.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so Scotty's busy this week. Michael, friend of the pod, already did an episode with just Scotti. Thought it was my turn to get my chance. We're planning on talking about Pro Champs. Mike was TD for that, organized that. And then also sectional is coming up. We are in different sections, different regions, that we can compare some rivalry stories, what we're expecting for the tournament. But before we get into all that, Philly Open, how does it feel to lose to my team?
Oh my God, was this whole thing just an ambush? This is crazy. Here I thought I was doing y'all a favor and coming on as the special guest co-host, and it's all just a setup for me to get shit on. This is crazy.
No, I planned that after the fact, after you already said yes. I was excited. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. I love being just like the backup host, the backup co-host whenever one of y'all can't make it. It's a role I will happily play. Yeah, since the last time I was on, I got to play against both you and Scotti at Philly Open. How crazy was it that in a tournament of 32 teams, it worked out that I got to play not just one, but both of y'all? That was divine intervention. It was just fate that we got to play each other.
No, it was fun. Your team was good. They have a little fancy camera set up and shared the footage of our game. I looked really cool in the Jug Handle group chat. I was like, just dropped the video link with no other. I was like, hey, Mal's captains gave me this. And then my captains were like, you know anyone else? I'm like, no, sorry.
Yeah, you set your own bar too high. Congratulations. Now you have to have plugs on every team that you play against. Yeah, for everybody wondering, our setup's not that fancy. One of my teammates, a guy named Clayton Carey, goes by Sleeves, has this, like, I think it's 20-foot tripod. The tripod is very nice. It was a gift that he got for his birthday. It is a really nice tripod, but then he just puts a standard GoPro on top of it, and it's just a very slight, like, swivel back and forth, and you can control the GoPro from his phone, so he can start and stop recording that way. But it is... I was super skeptical of it at first, but it is a really cool angle for watching film. You get to kind of see most of the field zoomed out. Terrible if you're like trying to make a highlight reel or something, but as far as like learning game film, pretty cool. And like standard GoPro, really nice tripod, but it's not difficult to operate at all. And it's a pretty cool setup, actually.
Yeah, no, maybe the tripod made it look more high tech than it was.
It is a crazy tripod, and we're flying to regionals, assuming we make it, which I guess we'll talk about later. So we're trying to figure out like how we're going to fly with it. It's going to be a journey. But
you just need the one person to drive. I drove to Elite Select Challenge, and I brought like so many people's chairs, snacks.
How far was that drive?
12 hours with stops. I had two other people in the car with me.
Still terrible.
I hate flying, and I saved like $500.
Well, there's that. We skated past it because it was disastrous for me, but we should talk about our teams playing each other at Philly Open because it was a crazy game with like, have you shouted out your teammate for how that game ended on here?
Yes,
yet?
We did on the other, the other episodes where our captain got a layout Callahan to end it on Universe.
Crazy.
So
it's crazy. We battled back. We were on like a 2 or 3 goal run to force Universe and then got the block, had a chance to break and just lay out Callahan. Disaster. The person who threw it had subbed in on an injury call as well. So like he was just not even supposed to be on the field. He got set up for a Callahan. His first toss of the point, his first touch.
I said this on the episode, but I'll tell you. So the guy who got the Callahan, he had been clearing out of the handler space and wasn't looking to be thrown to. and someone on our team like threw
Yeah.
an up line and he wasn't expecting it. And I think he got like pissed. He was like, oh, we had the chance and I missed it. And then he goes and he gets it right back. And I was like, oh.
It was a sick play. A horrible throw on our part that he did his job by punishing. So, but anyways, super fun game. And y'all went on to win the championship. So now we can lie to ourselves and be like, oh, that was the real final. So that was cool.
Well, yeah, your game was harder than the other ones. We won 13-2 and 13-7.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, oh well. A win's a win. So congrats on that. But yeah. So what do you want to talk about?
That was the second most important tournament of the year, but the first Pro Champs just happened this past weekend. I watched most of the live streams. I know Monday, I watched all the finals on Monday. I got up, I was like, it's Labor Day. I don't have anything to do. I'm watching Ultimate all day. But you organized that, and I have almost no concept what goes into organizing a tournament. So I thought we could talk about that.
Sure.
And just first thing, what is the general timeline for setting something up like this? How far back do you have to plan? What is the first thing you got to do?
Yeah, I guess. So my involvement personally started in June. So very beginning of June, first week of June, when the bid had already been awarded to Triangle Ultimate. So Triangle Ultimate is the local governing body. And they had partnered with a local, it's actually, I think it's a government agency. It's called GRSA, the Greater Raleigh Sports Alliance. And they are a public organization, a government organization whose job it is to try and bring in events and traffic to the Raleigh area. And so they partnered with Triangle Ultimate to place the bid with USA Ultimate for the event. And then once it was awarded to them, the executive director of Triangle Ultimate, it's a guy named Tristan Green. Tristan's incredible and has done an amazing job building Ultimate in the Raleigh area. And he actually plays for Toro, which is the top mixed team in this area. So he was going to be playing in Pro Champs. So he was looking for a tournament director. And he reached out to me. I was trying to count. I think this was my 12th or 13th tournament that I've TD'd. I used to run a couple tournaments when I was playing in college. My college team hosted a couple tournaments, and I run a couple tournaments each year under the FCS brand. It stands for Furniture City Shootout. The city of High Point's known as Furniture City. There's where that name comes from. But anyway, so most people who know me know I host the D3 tournament in March, and we host a couple of club tournaments each summer. So Tristan knew I had background as a tournament director, but he brought me in June once they officially got the bid because he knew he was going to be playing in the tournament and needed somebody who could just focus on running the actual event. So I was brought in at the beginning of June. So you're looking at June, July, August. So 3 full months before the event started was when I got involved and started working on it.
When does the bid have to be submitted?
It's a great question. I'm sure what the USAU advertised deadline for bid submissions is versus when it was actually required to be submitted are two very different things. I imagine it started. So I know this because I know of people who are bidding on college nationals for next year. That bid deadline was the beginning of August. So probably bids are due 6 to 9 months ahead of the tournament, I had to imagine. So, yeah. So, and actually we got very lucky. So this might be opening up a whole new can of worms of questions, but having GRSA, that's GRSA, GRSA, having them involved was incredibly helpful because they took care of most of the paperwork and of the bid process because it's literally their full-time job to bring stuff like this to the tournament. So they corresponded with us, with Triangle Ultimate to ask us specifics and questions and such of the paperwork. But woman's name is Jocelyn, handled doing all the paperwork, which fine with me. Go for it, Jocelyn. You got it.
Nice. So that's all the annoying stuff, right?
Yeah, the actual paperwork. I mean, it's a 16-page bid proposal or something.
Is that insurance?
So you bid there's all kinds of things on the bid proposal. So yeah, you have to talk about the venue and what the insurance policies and such of the venue are. But then you also have to share like what your hotel plan will be. You have to share like what your capacity is for like hotels and stuff. You have to share your capacity of like field sizes, times you'll have access to the field, what type of fields they are. You have to list out contacts for like who you'll be working with. You have to list out like, you basically have to like, it's basically like an audition for like, can you actually host this event? Like, do you have the resources? Do you have the means? Do you have the staff? Do you have the volunteer base, et cetera, et cetera? So usually what happens is you submit that, you fill it out, and then someone from USAU follows up with you, and you have either like an actual site visit or just like an extensive phone call discussion to like kind of like further. It's like, think of it like a job interview, but for
a
like,
field site.
for like hosting a tournament. You're basically being interviewed for hosting the tournament.
Okay, so Gersa handled that, and then what did you do? Because it sounds like.
So it sounds like Gersa did a lot, but really they just did like the paperwork stuff up front. So then once I came in, the first thing was working with Tristan to kind of like outline the estimated budget for the event and what we were going to need, and then looking at the different buckets of where the budget would go. We then created a local organizing committee, so an LOC, where we had people who were kind of spearheading each of those individual buckets. So first we had Lauren Fain, who she works for Triangle Ultimate full time. I'm not sure what her exact job title is, but she came on and was heading up the volunteer effort. We had Mitch Dangler, who everybody knows. He actually is local to Raleigh, so he was the head for our observers. So worked with him to like gather observers, establish the budget for them, figure out which ones were going to need hotels, how they wanted to be paid, et cetera, et cetera. We have a local guy named Josh Berkowitz, who is a physician. He was our head for trainers. So he worked with the venue to hire their trainers, make sure they had everything they needed, brief them on what was going to be asked of them for the weekend, kind of oversee their performance, et cetera. A guy named Tom Munoz, he handled stat keeping. So he was in charge of like all the iPads, training the volunteers to use the iPads, making sure they were all set up, charged, et cetera, et cetera. A woman named Denise Fleming. Denise headed up parking for the weekend. So that was like our only, other than bid fees, our only revenue source for the weekend was we asked people to pay for parking. We didn't charge like admission. It was just parking. Let's see, there's going to be people I forgot, and I hate forgetting people. But yeah.
Was that ever a bucket?
Like food trucks and stuff. Yeah. So that was something that, Tristan and I handled directly. We didn't have like an LOC member for that. So, we can kind of circle back to that. But yeah, so then basically we had each of these people who were assigned like individual tasks of like the tournament, but then all of them were reporting to me and to Tristan. And so I was having to work with all of them when they had questions, whether it was about budget or timing or capacity or like looping in the venue. So I worked directly with the venue. So anything related to the venue went through me. I worked with Gersa to set up hotel blocks, communicate those hotel blocks to the teams. Any team communication came from me. And then like, yeah, the food trucks. So Tristan actually ended up kind of spearheading the food truck push, but reaching out to local food trucks, making sure we had a diverse like selection of food trucks, making sure we had vegan options. Food trucks are way higher maintenance than I imagined coming into this. So they're very picky about like how many food trucks are going to be there, where are we going to be positioned in relation to each other, who are these other food trucks, like making sure that they're going to like have like not too much competition and have ample business. So coordinating with them as well. So yeah, so it was one of those things where as far as like the things that I had ownership of was just like, that was just me, was only a few things. So anything with the facility. I guess from an LOC standpoint as well, not officially on the LOC, but working with Ultiworld and working with Charlie and Aiden for the streaming stuff. We can come back to that if you want. That was a fun thing as well. I handled, what's that?
Debuted Field Pass.
Yeah. So, we can dive into that. So the first time I went out to the tournament venue, WRAL Soccer Park, first time I went out there, just did a walkthrough. There was a big brick clubhouse that was kind of like in the middle of the complex. And on both sides of it were just big glass windows. And one side faced the stadium field, but then the other side faced out where you were going to be able to see 2, almost 3 of the other fields that we were using. And Charlie had talked to me beforehand, just prepped me with like questions to ask on the walkthrough for their streaming and such. And told me, if you guys have it in the budget to help us do like an additional stream, we'd love to try and expand our coverage, but we would need some help from you guys from the budget. And I was like, okay, we'll see what we can do. And so when I went out there and saw that other side and saw the view from there, I'm a big football fan, and I know like there's the NFL Red Zone channel. And we'd talked before, just like kind of joking at other Ulti World events about how cool it would be to be able to bounce around to different games and have multiple games where like if one game was a blowout, you could just focus more on another one and like have multiple options and like maybe have less in-depth coverage of those games, but just have more access to more games. And I was looking at it and realized that I think it could work with this setup. And so when I called Charlie afterwards, I kind of bounced it off of him. And so then I went back for another site walkthrough and FaceTime Charlie and Aiden in and kind of showed them what I was thinking and what the layout could look like. And they asked a few questions and they had everything that they needed. And then they kind of ran with it from there and made it happen. I think that's one thing that I like most about working with Charlie at Ulti World is that like when you give Charlie an idea or when you like come up with something, if he sees a vision for it, he'll take off running with it. Like, that was my experience with like the Donovan Award. Like we kind of threw that around just in a staff meeting one time. And then he was like, wait, we should do that. And it was a couple conversations later. And then boom, we had a Donovan Award now. And like, when you have ideas with Charlie, he's so like go getter, make it happen that he just makes it happen. And that's what it kind of happened with the field pass. And from what I saw online, it looked like it turned out pretty good and people were pretty happy with it. Did you watch it at all?
I didn't watch the field pass one because I thought I was going to get overwhelmed. Not gonna lie, I can barely focus on one game sometimes. I need to turn off the announcers as well, so maybe I would like field pass.
Wait, do you really turn off announcers when you watch games?
Yeah, I just kind of sit there in silence.
Wait, why? How do you know what's going on? Do you just?
I with my eyes. What do you mean?
Well, but
This is why I don't know who any players are.
Okay, that's what I was about to ask. Like, how do you know who you're watching at all? Like, player-wise?
I don't. I should learn who players are, whatever. Lindsay made fun of Scotti and I for not knowing who Bo Kittredge was.
I guess, how old are you and Scotti?
25.
Yeah, you probably missed him by a few years, I think.
Yeah. I found his Wikipedia page, though. It still says he's active.
Well,
but we could see.
Interesting. Yeah. So anyway, to bring it back, that was kind of like the big picture thing. And so then starting in the first week of July, every Tuesday, I had a meeting with Tristan and then any other member of the LOC who we needed to address stuff with. We would just jump on a video chat for an hour or more if needed to just kind of like touch base, catch up to speed, make sure we had a running to-do list or checklist of things to do, making sure we were crossing those things off and kind of meeting certain timelines and certain checkpoints, and started team communication a while out. Any team communication went through me. So that was another thing that was kind of a pain.
I saw that you had been called out on Twitter for not having this is not your responsibility later than shared, but not having the schedule out. And you're like, someone dropped or something like that. A team dropped.
So we had 2 teams drop at I think it was like late July, early August, way too late in the game for teams to be dropping. One in the mixed division, one in the women's division. And so we had to have new teams. We had to find new teams and get them on board. But that made it hard to publish like a team list or anything like that. But mostly, with like the difficulty of the team stuff is just a few of the like individual details. So like, okay, the bid fee for the tournament was a per player bid fee, not a team bid fee. So it was $40 per player. So we had to have each team tell us how many players they were going to bring, and then ask them to PayPal us the correct amount, 40 times whatever. And then I had a running spreadsheet going of how many people they paid for, and then corroborated it with their event roster to make sure that they paid for the right number of players and had the right corresponding thing there. So 34 teams that I was having to kind of cross-reference and cross-check to make sure that they paid the right amount and that it matched up with the roster that they submitted for the event. Having to do that. Another thing was for parking. Obviously, we weren't going to charge teams for parking. All the parking passes were digital. So you could buy your parking pass online and then you'd be emailed a QR code to get scanned when you come in. So I created a spreadsheet and sent it out to the teams where each team got 8 free parking passes. So I had to get them to fill out the names and email addresses of their drivers that they were going to have for the weekend, making sure then that they had that, because the last thing I wanted was like Saturday morning, someone's trying to drive in, they're running late for their warm-up already, and then they're getting charged at the gate for their parking or whatever. So like just trying to get out in front of anything that could be an issue. That was mostly like what I was doing, and a lot of that was like with the team communication. So yeah. And then once the tournament starts, like it's really just like most of the work is done. Once plays start, you're really just putting out fires at that point and dealing with things as they come. So making sure that the volunteers were where they needed to be, making sure that everybody working the event was like hydrated and fed and everything. So we did like vouchers for everybody for the food trucks, and making sure that Ulti-World streams and stuff were going well, making sure they had everything they needed there, making sure water coolers were filled, making sure trainers had everything they needed, kind of, using walkie-talkies to manage the complex and manage where certain people were needed and what was going on, making sure horns are blown for cap times and everything.
Were there any fires during the tournament? Any issues?
Yeah. So didn't realize this, but the soccer complex that we were at is technically a public soccer complex. I assumed that we would have it. The word assume is the worst thing you can do as a tournament director, by the way. This is on me. But I assumed that the field would be secured, blocked off. They told us that we were fine to leave stuff overnight and everything. So Saturday night, we had shade tents out for all the teams. We just broke down the shade tents. We had tables and chairs for volunteers at each field. So we just broke everything down, laid it under the table, left the coolers out. We actually filled the coolers the night before and left them out. So then that way in the morning we could go around with bags of ice and just drop those in, make our morning a lot easier. We had everything broken down at each field, thought we were fine. Showed up Sunday morning. 3 shade tents had been stolen. A couple scoreboards had been stolen. A couple water coolers had been stolen. And one field's cones had been stolen. And then also in driving around, realized that most of our water coolers were empty. And that's because people had just shown up. There was like pickup soccer groups and stuff that had just shown up, played on our fields. Free water. Yeah, they were like, oh, cool. The complex is hydrating us. Yeah, so they drank our water and stole a bunch of our stuff. So had to scramble to get new shade tents out to those teams. We had to go buy a couple water coolers to replace those. Luckily, we had a few extra scoreboards, so we were able to replace those. But coming in Sunday morning and finding a bunch of our stuff missing, and then checking first with the volunteers that were at those fields the night before and the teams that were last at those fields the night before to make sure everything was left before then accusing the complex of our stuff getting stolen. So that was frustrating. And then Sunday night, we hired security to come out and like check on the complex a few hours after we left to then hopefully make sure stuff wasn't getting stolen or messed with again. But I'll go on a little rant here. The entitlement from soccer players is the most infuriating thing that I think I've ever had to deal with. So this complex, the way it was set up, it was one-way roads through the whole complex. There was one entrance and just looped around the whole complex, and then there was an exit. So we shut the gate to the entrance. But then for some reason, there's no gate on the exit. I don't know why. I think it has to do with the fact that like as technically a public park or something, they have to maintain.
Can't lock people in.
Yeah, there's something like that. I don't know the legalese of it, but there's a reason they told me they don't have a gate for the exit. So people started some people parked in front of the gate of the entrance and then would just walk around. And then 2, people started just driving in the exit. Like, how do you see that the park is shut and your thought is, oh, well, they're just making me work a little harder, I guess. And like you go in somewhere else.
Were there any open fields that you guys weren't using at the complex?
There were some like auxiliary fields that are too small to fit an ultimate field. So like smaller, like 5-a-side soccer fields and stuff that teams use to like warm up and whatnot. Okay. But like we had the whole complex rented. So there wasn't supposed to be anything else going on. So before I left Sunday night, I went to like run a few kids off the field and stuff. And they were so unbelievably disrespectful to me. Like they were just going as slow as they possibly could getting off the field. And then these 2 kids that I kicked off, they were being little assholes about it. They like they were walking off and then stopped. And one of them laid down and the other started like stretching his hamstring, like pushing his leg out. And I pulled up to him. I was like, guys, come on, seriously. They were like, we're just stretching. I was like, stretch anywhere else. I really don't care. They were like, so we can stretch right outside the gate. I said, you can go stretch anywhere else on God's great earth, but you are not doing it here. Get out of here now. Like, I wanted to put my hands on these 17-year-olds so badly. It was driving me nuts, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, is it soccer players or is it children? Because I had an incident after I watched all the finals on Monday. I went to go throw with my boyfriend in the park. We went to this brand new park. There were these 12-year-olds. I don't know how old kids look, but they were cursing up a storm. It was like 2 little groups of 12-year-olds that were encroaching on each other's turf. They were yelling at each other. They were saying words I did not know at the age of 12. And I was like, do I need to get involved here? They were bad.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's probably a combination of the two, to be honest, but like, it's just like, for them to just act like they were entitled to these fields and that it was their right to be on these fields. And it's just like, really the problem is with the complex. Like they need to be more secure than that. Like there needs to be a better way to lock the place up. But that's something we're going to talk to them about. We have a debrief call for next week of, reviewing how things went and feedback for future events. Oh, here's the other thing that came up. The complex had a big ice cooler, like a big ice chest, like you would see out in front of a gas station with bags of ice in it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we were told to use for our ice, for our coolers for the weekend. And I told the guy who was my contact, I was like, hey, we're going to go through that ice. Like, we're going to run through it. And he was like, oh, like it should be okay. And I was like, I'm telling you right now, because I ran a smaller tournament. I ran an FCS tournament 2 weekends ago with 11 teams. And we went through a whole ice chest like that with just 11 teams. I was like, I'm telling you right now, 3 times as many teams. We're going to run through that chest. And he was like, well, we'll figure it out if that happens. Before the end of the 3rd round on Saturday, we were out of ice. Eesh. And their company, because it was a holiday weekend, like the company they buy their ice from, just nowhere to be found to be able to refill the chest. So they couldn't do it. So for the rest of the weekend, we were having to send volunteers in pickup trucks with like a credit card to any gas station, any grocery store, anything around us that we could buy ice from. I think I did the math and we ended up buying an additional, I think it was 260 bags of ice, 7-pound bags of ice, in addition to the full chest that we already went through. I think we went through something like close to 3,000 pounds of ice on the weekend. And so like when I was talking to my field guy, he was like, yeah, lesson learned. He's like, in the future, I think we'll just get a whole trailer in here instead of just an ice chest. We'll just do an ice trailer. It's like, I tried to tell you, man. I tried to tell you. So
is the complex picking up the cost of those ice bags or?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Because they were already going to be invoicing us for the bags that we used. So they filled it up. And so then in their blissfully ignorant minds, it was like, we'll fill it. And then whatever's left, we'll subtract, and that's how we'll know what to invoice you. I was like, I'm trying to tell you guys, we're going to fly through that ice. So
does every like bid fee account for like unexpected expenses like that?
It's a good question. It's a good question. So when we're setting the budget, there is like cost built in for like, you call it what you want, like an emergency fund, rainy day fund, et cetera, et cetera. But the other thing too is that we always budget on the higher side of things. Yeah. So when you're setting the budget for the event, you set a minimum and a maximum of like, all right, this is the minimum that we expect this is going to cost. Based on what we think, this is like the maximum the event could cost. And then you build in a buffer even above that as well. So when setting up an event, you never want to set up to where you could lose money on the event, obviously. And full disclosure, USA Ultimate encourages tournament directors and organizers to make money on events because we're putting in like hundreds of hours in organizing this event. Like we deserve to be compensated for our time. So, when we're setting things up ahead of time, we distinguish like, this is the minimum this event should cost. This is the maximum we can imagine this event would cost. Let's add a little bit more above that. And that's kind of how we create the budget. And what that does is it allows you, like, as the weekend progresses to be tighter or looser with money for certain things like volunteer food, buying meals for other people on site, going ahead to green light, having to buy more ice and things like that. So it's one of those things that you build in that cushion and that buffer for yourself. And then also, ideally, you then host events repeatedly. So then you have a better idea of what that budget looks like and you can tighten up the cost. So like, for example, the FCS tournaments that I host, I have a pretty dialed in budget that I need. And I'm now at the point where I say, okay, so at $500 per team, if I get 12 teams, these are the amenities that we can have. If we get to 16 teams, then we can add this, this, and this. If we get up to 20 teams, then we can add this, this, and this. So like knowing with additional revenue, what additional expenditures we can have. So the nice thing for a tournament like Pro Champs is that like it's a very set amount of teams that you're going to have. So you can kind of plan for that stuff ahead of time.
Has it only been 12 per division in the past? I thought it was 16.
Yeah. It's only been 12 per in the past. And actually the women's division this year only had 10. I'm not sure entirely why that is. So this is like another layer of the conversation that we'd hinted at getting to. Anything from a competition standpoint of the tournament, USA Ultimate handled. So that was, I'd kind of tweeted a PSA about this when teams were asking for the schedule publicly, which, by the way, I answered every email. So you could have asked me over email as well, but airing me on Twitter also gets a response. So that's fine as well. But anything from a competition standpoint. So determining the team list, seeding the teams, making the schedule, any of that stuff came from USAU. My job was just to execute everything. So I was given what to put on, right? Like I was given the schedule and stuff and said, make this happen. So that was an interesting line to toe and an interesting dance to do with USA Ultimate, because when I'm hosting my own tournaments, I get to make the schedule. I get to build everything out. So I was in a lot more control, or I am in a lot more control for those than I was in this case. So that was kind of an interesting line to toe.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. What did they do? And then what were the good and bad things about working with them, if you want to say? Sure.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a little more of a USAU apologist than most, generally speaking. I know everybody in the Ultimate community loves to shit on them, and in the community's defense, they make it easy sometimes. So I did appreciate not having to do the actual like building of the schedule and stuff. So in order to put a schedule onto the USAU website, you have to use their EMS, their event management system. And it is not the most user-friendly system to have to do. So building out tournaments on there can be an absolute pain in the ass. And so I didn't have to do any of that, which was nice. I also like this sounds so lame to say out loud, but like it was nice when anybody complained about the schedule or anything for me to just be like, go talk to them. Not my job. Go talk to them. So like I do appreciate USAU kind of being like my shield in that sense of like, I didn't make it. Go talk to them. So that part I did appreciate. I think the tough part was, and I'm understanding this because USAU has had a crazy summer because all the events that got postponed from the pandemic all happened this summer with like the international tournaments and stuff. Mm-hmm. So between World Games, World Ultimate Club Championships, the U20 Championships, like all this stuff happening back to back to back. So, and USAU is still understaffed coming out of the pandemic. Because of that, they got the schedule out very, very late, like Wednesday afternoon before the tournament level of late.
Yeah.
However, when you go on the tournament page, the only contact given is, with questions, reach out to tournament director Mike Ball, and it was my email. So the only call for communication was to me about stuff that I then had no control over. So it did kind of feel like I was being hung out to dry a little bit on that front. But all that meant was people email me and I say, I don't have it yet, ask so-and-so. And so like, it was more annoying than anything. It wasn't really that big of a deal, but there were times where I wish I was in control of the schedule, just because like then I could answer those questions instead of having to pass them on to somebody else. But I also understand USAU, it's one of their flagship events, them wanting to be in control of it. So like, I get it. But it was kind of weird to not feel like you were totally in control of a tournament that your name was attached to, if that makes sense.
From my perspective of everything you just said, it sounds like what USAU does, though, for that tournament is like a very insignificant part of it. It sounds like all of the field setup, organizing all the different vendors and all the other stuff, that sounds like 90% of the work that has to be done.
Yeah, that's correct. Like the only thing is that like their 10% is the most like public 10%.
Yeah,
it's what everybody
true.
sees, right? It's what everybody wants to know and see. And like even people who aren't going to the actual event, what they want to see. So you are correct. It is maybe 10% of the total thing. It's just like a very shiny, bright, loud 10% that everybody sees and asks about.
Yeah.
So kind
It's
of
the
balance
nice stuff
there. Yeah.
And then you had posted a thread talking about Twitter in general, just your general thoughts about pro champs. I'll let you like say anything. You had a little cheeky note in there after. I thought it was fun because I had asked you to do this, and then you tweeted this out, and you're like, I could tweet about running a tournament, or I could talk about it on another medium. And I was like, oh, my podcast?
Did I tweet that before or after you asked me to come on? Because
let's get the receipts. I have no idea.
Well, so I kind of just kept a thread of drafts going all weekend. But okay. I holstered my thoughts until after to just post the thread because I wanted to be able to like engage and respond to people who had like responses to what I said, but I knew if I was like in the middle of the tournament, I might not be as responsive. So those were the thoughts that I had like jotted down throughout the weekend.
7:01 p.m. yesterday.
You really are.
I'm looking at it. And then when did I message you?
I think you messaged me yesterday morning. So I think you were first.
No, yeah, 1 p.m. So... I mean, unless that was one of your thoughts. Well, that was your last thought, was I might do another thread about organizing. So,
I won't. I'll funnel. You know what I'll do? I'll quote tweet this pod. I'll quote tweet the pod when it comes up. We're going to drive traffic here. So the 12 people that want to hear my thoughts can come listen to the podcast.
Now that someone did say that Scotti like knows in real life, they were like, oh, now that Send the Field stopped, we're going to listen to you.
Wow.
I'm like, maybe, we got any...
What I am to you guys as hosts, you are to the podcast community. See how I'm like the backup host? Y'all are the backup.
We're the
backup. Also, do we know for sure that they're done? I don't think they're done.
I don't know.
I think they're just taking a little break.
I don't know.
Should relax.
I didn't listen to their episode because all my Frisbee podcast free time is taken up by actually recording one.
Fair. It's very fair. It's very fair.
You can only do so much Frisbee podcast work.
Yeah.
But yeah, you tweeted that.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I was going to say, you tweeted that thread and I had some thoughts.
Okay, let's hear it.
I do not like the hybrid jerseys.
How do you not like those?
Maybe because you saw them in person. I did. So after I saw that you tweeted that, I did look for a picture on Twitter. They look better close up, but from the broadcast angle, they don't look good.
What don't you like about them? Like, what about it?
I don't like the purple blue combo.
Okay, first of all, my team is using a similar combo this season. So maybe that's why I like it, is because I'm like used to that color combo. So I think that because I did watch the stream of the mixed final last night, and I was surprised how much the Hawaiian print popped on stream.
Yeah.
In person, it is more subtle than that. And I think it's like a really good use of full sub. I think that most of the time Frisbee teams, and we talked about this in our bracket that we did, I think full sub gets overused. I think too often people see full sub and they think just because you can do something means you should do something. And that is not how it works. I like full sub when it's used as a texture, like when it's used to add like depth to a jersey. And it felt like in person that's what those jerseys accomplished. But it was more pronounced on the stream.
It didn't look good on stream, but I did see pictures on Twitter and I liked it more there. So now I'm like conflicted. Do Frisbee teams have to think about their on-stream possibilities when designing jerseys?
God, first off, as the guy who has to use streams a lot for like my reporting and stuff, I wish they would. But nobody is. We're not at that point just yet. But hopefully one day, one of these days.
One of those days. All right. So hybrid, we're iffy. We're okay. The other thing you tweeted, and then I saw other people just kind of talking about men's ultimate in general. You said, "I hate how truck stop plays from a pure aesthetic standpoint." I mean, one, talking about jerseys, but two, I just saw a lot of people on Twitter saying that they find men's ultimate boring, and I don't understand what they're saying.
So I want to be clear that is different than what I was saying. Okay. So
don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah. So let's address both. So as far as what I was saying, their offense is very handler driven. Like there is times on the field where they have like 5 handlers on any given point, where they have guys who are capable of kind of fluctuating back and forth between handling and cutting, but that I have seen play as handlers on past teams. And they do a lot of small ball, like dink and dunk type stuff. And they also are very comfortable, like working in really tight spaces. Like their spacing sometimes looks so chaotic and congested, but they still execute, and like you can see how comfortable they all are in it, which makes it feel like that it's like by design that they are comfortable working in those spaces. When I'm when I'm coaching or teaching, or like my favorite kind of offense is more like big spaces, creating big windows for each other and like trying to create big lanes to throw into and to cut into. So it's just antithetical to how I like to see Frisbee played. But I made sure to point this out in the thread. Like it is very much just a personal preference, because they are good as hell at what they do and execute at a really high level. It's just for what I enjoy watching, not what I like. Now, as far as the conversation, because I saw some of this too about men's being boring. I mean, I'm speaking anecdotally here because I don't have the numbers to justify this, but just from what I saw, there seems to be less turnovers in the men's games. I think it's just the way that men's teams are playing right now. I think there's a lot of that small ball type stuff. And so I think that a sport like Ultimate can become very repetitive almost when it's just offense scoring over and over again. Like the excitement of a game comes in runs and when a team breaks and stuff. And I think that anecdotally, there was just less of that in the men's division, at least in the games that got streamed. I mean, this one's an actual like fact for you. The truck stop ring semifinal, the last 15 points were all holds. And only one of those holds had a turnover in it. So there was only 2 turnovers in the last 15 points, and it was still like both sides turned the disc over. So 14 out of the last 15 points were clean holds that didn't feature a single turnover. So like if you're like a real nerd and you like appreciate the nuance and like the fine margins that these offenses were executing on, like that's still fun to watch. If you're someone who likes chaos and craziness and unpredictability and like runs and stuff like that, then it was pretty boring and repetitive to watch. So like I think that's where that was coming from, if I had to guess. I don't want to speak on people's behalf, but that's what I think it was.
I do remember Nationals last year. I think the men's final was a lot of holds.
Mm-hmm.
And then that I heard the same conversation. So I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I like hearing Frisbee community stuff explained to me. It's very helpful.
I don't know what it says about me that I can explain it. I don't like that I'm fluent in Frisbee community complaints, but
some of the stuff that like people are complaining, I don't understand what they're complaining about yet. And it's not like, oh, why are you complaining? It's like, I don't know what's happening in this situation. Some of these videos, I'm like, is that a foul? What's happening here? I don't know what a foul is anymore.
Yeah. I
just don't touch anyone. I try not to touch anyone at all.
Nice. Well, anything else that I said in there that you have questions or thoughts on?
The other one I have is just like people don't like turf, but we've been talking about this for a long time.
I mean, so turf is like it's a perspective thing. As a player, it sucks. I hate playing on turf.
I like turf. It's hot, but like the turf complexes are nice. You can easily get to other games. You're not going to have like a hole in the field. The amount of times where we've been to like a nice complex and there's a fucking hole in the ground. Or like Philly Open, it's a very nice grass complex, but one, they cancel for rain all the time.
Yeah.
And then two, the game that you and I played against each other, it was actually on a baseball outfield.
It's terrible. It was awful. So here's the thing. Like, players love to complain about turf because it's hot and like and the one complaint I will say is fair. There is data out there of like injuries happening at a higher rate on turf, stuff like ACL tears and stuff like that. Like, turf is less safe in that regard. However, putting on my organizer hat, like, I had teams flying from all over North America, teams coming from Seattle and Vancouver and Southern California and New York and Boston and everywhere, like Toronto. All those teams coming down to play and spending a lot of money to play. If we have like a day of really bad storms on the Friday before the tournament and there's flooding and the field complex shuts down, all those teams are screwed. And now people are mad because they spent all this money and don't get to play. So like when you are hosting a big event that people are traveling from all over a continent to come play in, to be able to give teams the assurance that like this will happen, because like we could have weathered any lightning or anything like that because we had lights for the field. So like we could have delayed until freaking midnight if we needed to. Like we were set up because we were on turf with lights. We were set up to where there was no world in which this tournament wasn't going to happen. Like, we would have had to have like an end of days storm come over for like 3 days for this tournament to not happen. So like, that's the beauty of turf, is like it gives you the peace of mind as an organizer of knowing like we are going to have fields. And like also the peace of mind it gives players, to your point, is like there's not going to be random potholes and like these fields aren't going to get progressively destroyed over the course of the weekend. Like, that turf played the same way at 9 a.m. on Saturday as it did at 1 p.m. on Monday. Like, it was the same turf the whole time. So like, I understand the complaints about it, but like, I use the phrase necessary evil, and like that probably wasn't the best choice of words, but like if you want tournaments to be held with the assurance that it is going to happen, turf is the only way to guarantee that that is going to be the case. So got to pick and choose at some point.
Well, I'm okay with turf. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I don't mind it too badly either. There is like different grades of turf though, right? Like bad turf is pretty terrible, but like good turf, not that bad.
I'm now trying to think of how many. I didn't even know there are different types of turf.
Well, there's just like different quality of like the pellets being used and like the material of the turf and stuff. And like no one who was playing on it this weekend is going to feel this way. But the turf at the complex we were using is this brand new turf. It was laid down like within the past year that somehow stays cooler than other turf. It like has some sort of like, I'm not going to pretend to know the science behind it, but the complex was bragging about how like, yeah, this is the kind of turf that stays cool. I was like, all right, we'll see. But
I saw someone in the Ulti World Discord that was like, it should be protocol to like hose down the turf when it gets to a certain heat level. And then someone else is like, we're in a drought.
Yeah, what? No, I didn't see that, and I'm glad I didn't, because I I ignored most criticism. That one I might have clapped back at a little bit. That's some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. First off,
would that even help?
I doubt it. And then second, like the amount of water that we would use to do that, and like, yeah, that's horrendous. No.
Watering fake grass.
No. You know how dumb we'd have looked if people were driving by and we're out there watering down turf? Like, it wasn't that hot.
Yeah,
like,
I saw that other thing. I mean, I'm one of those people that I get really hot real quick. I am not built for the South. So.
Like, okay, so even removing like my callousness and like my like being used to this aside, USAU has their like heat level 1, heat level 2, like that they use the wet bulb thermometer for, which combines like humidity, dew point, temperature, etc., cloud cover, wind. It like factors all of that stuff in. We never got out of heat level 1, and actually for about half the weekend, we were never even in heat level 1. Heat level 1, just so you know, means that there's heat timeouts when one team reaches 4 and one team reaches 12 points. Mm-hmm. We never got out of heat level 1, and actually for large stretches of the weekend weren't even in heat level 1. But we just left it at heat level 1 all weekend to like help teams out and to give them that assurance. And we had that wet bulb going on the turf. So like, I don't know what to tell teams. Like at some point, it's just like, you signed up to play an outdoor sport in the summertime. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's hot, but like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, no.
It is what it is. If you want air conditioning, go play volleyball or basketball or something. I don't know what to tell you. But anyways, there's always going to be those complaints. So not a big
deal.
deal.
Everyone's going to complain about something no matter what.
Oh, yeah. And the Frisbee community is good at that. So there's always going to be that. But anyways.
We love complaints.
Well.
All right. Well, we've been recording for 51 minutes. I have to leave in 15 for my PT. But we do have like a good segment, so we could wrap it up.
Okay.
Not talk about sectionals. I don't know if you want to record a subs only tomorrow and talk about sectionals, or I could do something myself.
We can do that. Yeah, I think I'll actually have my sectional schedule by then, hopefully.
I was trying to find yours. So we can like compare our schedules. And then I was like, oh, yeah, it doesn't exist.
Do you need to record like a quick, like, well, that's going to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that real quick. And then, yeah, Sue will chop the... Is Sue still your editor?
Yes.
Hey, Sue, thanks for your work this weekend. She was there producing. So Sue rules. All right, yeah.
And coaching, right?
She was jumping down and coaching Phoenix when she could, yeah. Or I'm sorry, when they could. So yeah, they were down there during the semis and finals, I think, coaching. So
yeah, I saw him on stream.
Yeah, rocking the jersey, the Phoenix Mercury jersey,
nice.
The Brittany Griner jersey. Shit was sick.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
All right, we will. All right, well, thank you, Mike. That was a lovely little chat about Pro Champs. I feel like I was telling Scotti in earlier episodes, I feel like it's been recorded, maybe not. I'm looking for like my next ultimate Frisbee activity to do that isn't like playing, because I tried coaching. I liked it. I feel like I need more knowledge before I do it again. Maybe like TD is in my future. I'm running Pro Champs next year.
You and Scotti, and my dog just decided to make noise as we're recording. But yeah, you and Scotti, Laying It Out hosts Pro Champs next year. Pro Champs 2023 brought to you by Laying It Out. Yeah, no, I mean, the community needs people who are willing and able to host tournaments. I mean, it's one of the necessary jobs that we have. So, I think y'all could do it, and I'd be happy to provide any assistance or guidance from afar if you needed it. So,
gonna make it happen in New Jersey. No more.
Y'all should host
Southern heat.
A Laying It Out invitational. Host like a fall college tournament or something like that. Ooh. Something like fairly low stakes, but make it
We could do tri-state area, because I live in New Jersey now. She's always lived in New York. I used to live in Connecticut.
It could be y'all could be what takes down Ultimate and gets people to stop complaining about Ultimate tournaments.
Well, it's been taken down and renamed.
Oh, really?
It's something else now, but it's basically the same thing. And they're doing better, maybe.
I was about to say, actually, I hadn't heard many complaints about them in the last couple of years, so I didn't know if that was a COVID thing or what.
They film a lot of stuff and put it on their website, which is cool too.
Oh, that is cool. Nice.
And they offer prize money. But getting sidetracked. Thank you for this lovely episode. We said we were going to talk about sectionals, but just had too much to say about Pro Champs. So we'll be shoving that over to the PS zone. But yeah, for now, I've been Chelsea Pockets.
Yeah, and I'm Mike Ball.
I'll catch you on the flip.
Peace.